After 4 straight losses, I can finally say it again. Oh, happy day, happy day. The Philadelphia Phillies got a huge series opening win up there in Canada against the Toronto Blue Jays. They won that ball game 8-3 last night to kick off that 3-game series against the AL East Blue Jays. Like I said, they snapped a 4-game losing streak. Now, I do apologize. I did say in yesterday's video that Zach Wheeler was going to be on the mound. I forgot that his wife is having a baby, so he's not with the team right now. He's away with his family. Great for him. Happy for the Wheelers. So they bumped Christopher Sanchez up 1 day to pitch in that series opening win against the Toronto Blue Jays, and he did pretty well overall, all things considered. Like I said, big win, 8-3. The Phillies offense came alive for the most part after a week-long bout of struggles and not really living up to their expectations. But anyway, I'm your host, Mike Kennelly. This is Phillies Daily. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Phillies content. And like I said, the Phillies offense, they came out firing against the Blue Jays last night in that 8-3 win. First, Bryson Stott reached base on a walk to open up the game, and then Trey Turner came up. He hit a 2-run home run to give the Phillies an early 2-0 lead. And then, what do you know? Bryce Harper, the Phillies superstar, the face of the franchise, one of the faces of Major League Baseball. Bryce Harper missed a week after getting hit in the right elbow, his surgically repaired right elbow by Braves starter Spencer Strider last Tuesday with a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. He's got a brace on that elbow now just to protect himself, but he came up for his first at-bat in a week since leaving that game against the Braves. And what do you know? In pure Bryce Harper fashion, pure Bryce Harper style, he launched a back-to-back home run with Trey Turner to give the Phillies an early 3-0 lead through their first 3 batters of that ball game. It's Bryce Harper's 9th home run of 2025. And then also Trey Turner hit a 2-run, or no, he didn't. He had a solo home run in the 8th inning for his 2nd home run of the game. So the Phillies finished that ball game with 3 home runs in that 8-3 victory. Both of their $300 million men came up big and got those home runs. Much needed. Like I said, great to see Bryce Harper back in action. The Phillies need him in the lineup. We've seen how bad that lineup can be without their superstar in it. When he's in the lineup, it just fears the other opposing pitcher, fears the other team. They have to make sure to be careful around Bryce Harper, which gives the other guys in the lineup more opportunities, more pitches to hit. So just having Bryce Harper back is huge, huge, huge for the Philadelphia Phillies. And like I said, the Phillies did jump out to a big start against the Blue Jays last night. They were firing on all cylinders in that first inning, in the top of the first inning. Before yesterday's ball game, during the 4-game losing streak, the Phillies were averaging just 6.75 hits per game and 3.5 runs per game. Like I said, during that 4-game losing streak against the Braves and then being swept by the Brewers at Citizens Bank Park. And then the Phillies came out exploding on Tuesday night against the Blue Jays last night. They had a 6-run, 6-hit first inning, including those back-to-back home runs by Trey Turner and Bryce Harper. They batted around the order. 8 of the first 11 batters of the ball game all reached base safely in that first inning. The Blue Jays starter had to throw 39 pitches in that first inning, and then they got early bullpen action in that first inning, which is always great to see. If you can get a starter out of the game early, especially to kick off a 3-game series, that's huge because then their bullpen has to be used more, and it just helps the Phillies down the line as the series moves on, gives them better opportunities because the opposing bullpen is not as strong, not as rested as they should be. And then the Phillies scored 1 more run in the 2nd inning, and the Blue Jays starter did end up getting lifted from that ball game in just the 2nd inning. He went 1 2/3 innings after the Phillies scored 7 runs. So the Phillies got to him early, knocked him out of the game real quick. But then unfortunately for the Phillies, not necessarily unfortunately because they ended up winning the ballgame 8-3, but their offense went cold after that 2nd inning. After that second inning, it felt like they were just completely dominated by the Blue Jays pitching. and they just couldn't really get any runners on base, couldn't really get any action like they did in the first inning especially. They had just 4 hits and then 1 run through the rest of the game after that second inning when they were up 7-0. So just 4 hits and 1 run in the next 7 innings. Not great to see. You like to see more consistency, especially after a big start like that. But like I said, they did get an 8-3 win, which is really all that matters. And that 1 run and 1 of those 4 hits came by Trey Turner of his second home run of the ball game in that 8th inning. So a little bit of fire and ice with the Phillies offense last night, a little bit of hot and cold, but all that matters is that it came away with a huge 8-3 victory against a pretty good Blue Jays team to kick off a 3-game series up there in Toronto and snap a 4-game losing streak. That's all that matters. You got to win ball games. If you're not getting hits or scoring runs all game long, but you're still winning a ball game, at the end of the day, that is totally fine with me. A huge reason why the Phillies did win that ball game was Christopher Sanchez. Now, Christopher Sanchez, as I said earlier, bumped up one day to replace Zach Wheeler, whose wife is having a baby. Congrats to them again. Christopher Sanchez hasn't really had his best stuff in 2025 so far. He's still a very good left-handed pitcher. He's still a very good pitcher among all of Major League Baseball right now. His numbers are pretty solid, but it's just not his best work, not as great as he was last year, especially from a command standpoint. Now, his previous 4 starts before yesterday against the Blue Jays, he really gutted out all 4 of those starts. He had all 4 of those starts. He had no decisions in all of them. He allowed 24 hits and 10 earned runs in those 4 starts. Like I said, he did have command issues through those 4 starts. Specifically, he allowed 8 walks and a hit by pitch in those starts. He has had command issues all season long, but that was just more a recent instance for Christopher Sanchez. And then he didn't necessarily have his best stuff last night either against the Blue Jays, but he didn't necessarily gut out a performance like he did in those previous 4 starts. He did allow a solo home run in the 5th, and then he did have command issues. Once again, he allowed a season-high 4 walks. Now, that's pretty alarming. It's eventually going to catch up to him. It's eventually going to come back and bite him. You can't be letting up that many walks in a ballgame against Major League pitching, especially on a team that's trying to win a World Series championship. It's just you can't allow the free paths, free bases, free opportunities to these hitters. It's not hurting him right now, but he has allowed 2 or more walks in 9 of his 12 starts in 2025, including those season-high 4 walks last night against the Blue Jays. He did go 6 strong innings, like I said. He threw 96 pitches, allowed only 4 hits, and he did pick up his first win since May 7th, which was nice to see. Like I said, he did have 4 straight no decisions, but those 96 pitches in those 6 innings could have been less if he didn't allow those 4 walks. He could have went deeper into the ballgame and saved the Phillies bullpen, who has been having issues all season long and obviously are down one of their main guys in Jose Alvarado, who's serving that suspension. So the walks have to stop with Christopher Sanchez and really with the pitching staff all around. But Christopher Sanchez did get the win. The Phillies did get an 8-3 win. And like I said, he is having an overall good season. Just the command issues and the walk rate is just not what we're used to seeing from Christopher Sanchez, and it needs to be lowered. It needs to be fixed as the season goes on and as we get closer to playoff time. And the Phillies bullpen has been a huge topic of conversation this year. They obviously struggled mightily to start the 2025 season. They're without Jose Alvarado, as I said. Don't really have a dominant option right now out there. They're kind of just feeling their way through this, trying to see what they have, trying to experiment with different guys like Taijuan Walker out there. They brought up Seth Johnson from the minors, just trying to see different guys in different roles, different opportunities. There's no doubt in my mind that they're going to be aggressive by the July 31st trade deadline to upgrade that bullpen. They traded for 2 relievers last year, and they had 2 All-Stars last year, and they still traded for 2 relievers, including a high leverage reliever in Carlos Estevez. So I firmly believe that the Philadelphia Phillies and Dave Dombrowski, their president of baseball operations, is going to make a move or 2 again this year to upgrade this bullpen. Hopefully, with a huge addition in the bullpen, we'll see names like Aroldis Chapman, Ryan Helsley, Mason Miller, Kyle Finnegan, those are all names that come to my mind right away that could significantly help this Phillies bullpen in the back end of the bullpen. So yesterday, I do want to shout out those guys because they did get the job done for the most part, and they would have had a perfect outing from the bullpen if it wasn't for Max Lazar. After Christopher Sanchez was lifted from the game after his 6 innings, Joe Ross, the veteran acquisition, came in. He pitched a scoreless 7th inning with 1 strikeout. He threw 9 pitches, and of those 9 pitches, he threw 7 strikes, so he got his job done. He was very efficient. And then, like I said, Max Lazar came in for the 8th inning. He allowed a walk and then a 2-run home run, which made it an 8-3 ball game at the time. And that's how it ended. The Phillies won 8-3, obviously. He finished that 8th inning with 1 hit, which was that home run, 2 walks. Again, you can't be walking these guys, especially 2 walks in 1 inning as a reliever late in a game. But he did have 1 strikeout. He did throw 22 pitches. Obviously, those 2 walks did increase that pitch count, but he did get out of it. They didn't have to bring in a high leverage guy at the time or that ball game at all or get somebody up. So that's good to see. And then Carlos Hernandez came in for the 9th in an 8-3 Phillies lead, and he's had serious command issues so far in 2025. He's got a huge arm. He just can't really figure it all out right now. If he can, he has dominant stuff, and he can be a huge addition to the back end high leverage situation for the Phillies. But right now, he's just had serious command issues. But last night, in that 8-3 win against the Blue Jays, in that 9th inning, he had a 1-2-3 inning. And like Joe Ross, he was extremely efficient. He threw 10 pitches in that 9th inning. And of those 10 pitches were 8 strikes against the Blue Jays to help the Phillies close out that game and win 8-3. Shout out to those guys because the Phillies had an off day on Monday, obviously. And then they didn't need to use any of their high leverage guys since they had a big lead against the Blue Jays last night to kick off that 3-game series. And when you can have an off day and then not have to use any of your high leverage guys, that is a huge, huge deal as a series goes on because those guys have extra rest and they're going to be extra rested, extra energized as the series goes on if they're needed today or tomorrow to close out the series and as the week goes on. So credit to Joe Ross, Carlos Hernandez especially, Max Lazar for getting out of it. The Phillies didn't need to use high leverage guys. Like I said, big deal. Gives Jordan Romano, Ryan Kirkring, Matt Strahm all extra rest. And that is big stuff for the Phillies bullpen, who has been struggling all year long. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Phillies Daily. I'm your host, Mike Hennelly. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe for all things Philadelphia Phillies. I'll be back at it tomorrow with hopefully a 2nd consecutive Phillies win and a series win against the Blue Jays. There's still 2 more games, but if they win today, then they win the series. Obviously, 2 games at least out of the 3. Again, Phillies Daily, Mike Hennelly. Go Phils.